Welcome to Yodeah's Save Our Sisters Breast Cancer Awareness event, and thank you for joining us. I'm Rachel Unger, and I'm so happy to be here with you this evening. I would be remiss if I did not start this program by thanking our many partners and our upcoming speakers. Tonight, we will share with you Yodeah's mission and speak about Jewish hereditary cancer genetic mutations, particularly BRCA mutations, and why this information can save both your life and the lives of those you love. We will hear from Dr. Elizabeth Etkin-Kramer, founder of Yodeah and a board-certified gynecologist practicing on Miami Beach for more than 25 years. Deborah Litwack, who is with Sharsheret, an organization that provides support and education to Jewish women and their families living with or at an increased risk for breast and ovarian cancer. Dr. Robin Strauss-Furlong, Eileen Uti, Dana Marin, and Rabbi Lila Haas, who all carry a BRCA mutation, will share their stories. Questions will be addressed following the presentation. Simply submit your questions in the chat module and we will get to as many as possible. We are starting with a short video of Dr. Etkin-Kramer and Dana Greenwald, a patient of Dr. Etkin-Kramer's. Color Genomics, a medical grade lab that has offered discounted testing through Yodeah, was so impressed by the great work Dr. Etkin-Kramer has done with Yodeah that they made this video. While watching the video, please note how easy it is to get tested.
We had a little hiccup with the video, but it's coming up now.
My name is Liz Etkin-Kramer. I'm an OBGYN. I've been in practice for 25 years. I use color genomics because it's at a price point that the majority of my patients feel comfortable with and will do the testing, and therefore I'll get the answer that I need to help take care of them.
Met Dr. Kramer in 2017, and she did suggest testing. It was there, it was in the office. How can you say no? It's so easy to do. Took the test, spit into my little vial.
The results came back. She carried what's called a pathogenic mutation in a BRCA2 gene, which means that she had a higher incidence of breast cancer, ovarian cancer. So then we had a conversation, okay, what do we need to do to help prevent cancer? Dana wasn't planning on having children, so she felt comfortable going through the removal of her tubes and ovaries.
Surgery went incredibly well until I got the phone call. You've got a really unusual lesion, which at that point I was told it was a precursor to cancer. And further investigation was that it was actually cancer.
Your genes don't care if you know or not. And there are things that we can do to help diagnose cancer in its earliest, most treatable phase.
I'm now in the middle of chemo treatment. I'm doing okay. Doing much better than I expected. But if someone can avoid having to do this, it's worth it.
You said to me that you looked at it as this gift. It was such an amazing way to look at it, that you've been given this information. You've been able to prevent something that otherwise would have been a much bigger issue.
Sometimes having knowledge is frightening, but I can't imagine not having it. I was able to make choices I couldn't have made otherwise. If I hadn't been informed, I would not have gotten the surgery, which means I would have been diagnosed at stage 3 or stage 4.
I think we're going to do good work. I think we're going to save lives.
I think we might have already saved someone. Yeah, she saved me. She saved me.
I am delighted to introduce Yodeah's founder, Dr. Etkin Kramer. In addition to her medical practice, Dr. Etkin Kramer is very active in the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. She has also been appointed to the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology Presidential Task Force on Knowledge Gaps in Breast and Ovarian Cancer Risk Assessment Management, including genetic testing. Liz, can you please tell us why you founded Yodeah? And if you just take yourself off mute so we can hear you, we would love that.
Technologically, no, I'm on mute.
No, you're good. Oh, wait, we're almost there.
Okay.
There we go. Now we can hear you.
I'm technologically challenged sometimes when it comes to Zoom, but so thank you. That video gives me chills every single time I see it. So I'm a gynecologist. I've been in practice for a long time on Miami Beach. And over the years, I have seen Ashkenazi Jewish women diagnosed with BRCA-related cancers that could otherwise have been prevented. And it is heartbreaking. So we started Yodeah a few years ago to educate the Ashkenazi Jewish community and make it easy for them to get tested. 1 in 40 Ashkenazi Jewish men and women carry a genetic mutation on the BRCA gene, and as a result have a higher risk of certain cancers. It doesn't make a difference if they have a family history or not. And the risks are still elevated if they have a family history, without a family history. But if you have this knowledge, Yodeah, you can do things to decrease your risk of cancer. And that's the cool thing. You can arm yourself with this information and not get blindsided.
So who is Yodeah's target audience to educate?
Well, we want to educate everybody, all Ashkenazi Jews, both men and women, even if they have only 1 of 4 Ashkenazi Jewish grandparents are eligible for testing. But the age at which we start testing is about 25 to 30 or so, because that's when we start to see our increased risk of cancers in the early 30s, especially in women. It's also the same time that men and women are starting childbearing. So this gives them some information because this is passed down to children, or it can be passed down to children. We also think it's extraordinarily important to educate physicians because many physicians don't know about this, and so they don't recommend testing to their patients. Medical guidelines have changed in the past year. So it is recommended for all individuals of Ashkenazi Jewish descent. But if your doctor doesn't know about this, it is important for you to advocate for yourself so that you can find testing or ask about testing and get yourself tested.
If you carry this mutation, does it affect women differently than men?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for putting the slide up. Absolutely. So this is an autosomal dominant mutation, meaning that it's seen equally in men and women, but, and this ties in directly with Breast Cancer Awareness Month, the cancers are much more common in women. So a woman who carries a BRCA mutation can have a 70 to 80% lifetime risk of breast cancer and up to a 50% lifetime risk of ovarian cancer. And as I said before, the age at which we see these cancers can be earlier, even in their 30s, where we wouldn't normally see that. Men who carry a BRCA mutation can have an aggressive prostate cancer up to about 30% of the time, as well as male breast cancer. But both men and women who carry BRCA mutations can have an elevated risk of pancreatic cancer and melanoma.
Why is it important to know whether you carry a BRCA mutation?
Rachel, it's simple. It's purely cancer prevention. 90% of people who carry BRCA mutations have not been identified. But if we knew who carries a BRCA mutation, we can take steps to prevent cancer We can diagnose cancer in its earliest, most treatable stage by doing additional screening or even undergo procedures or take medicine to prevent cancer. So on this slide is a very simple but powerful graph that shows on the right BRCA mutations, and that's the 70 to 80% lifetime risk. All the way on the left is the average risk if you don't have a family history and you don't carry a BRCA mutation. So as a physician, I want to make sure that my patients, my female patients, are not in the 70 to 80% lifetime risk of breast cancer. It's essential. And on the next slide, we will show you the issue in terms of ovarian cancer. This knowledge is extraordinarily impactful and truly life-saving. A big issue for gynecologists is that there is no screening for ovarian cancer, and I've been talking about that for 25 years. Unfortunately, there is no screening. Ultrasounds do not pick up an ovarian cancer at an earlier stage. Blood tests don't identify ovarian cancer, and that's why it's usually diagnosed when it has spread out of the pelvis. But in Ashkenazi Jewish women, 40% of ovarian cancers are related to a BRCA mutation. To me, it's mind-blowing. So this cancer that we can't screen for, we can know if somebody's at risk of developing it by doing testing.
If you are BRCA positive, do you have to have surgery?
No one has to have surgery, no. There are alternatives to surgery, and we review this with each patient, but surgery is always discussed as well. The treatment decisions are very personal, and it's very important to have the conversation with your physician. Remember, the highest risks of cancer are seen in women and their breast and ovarian cancer. For breast cancer, we have screening. We have mammograms that can help prevent fatal breast cancers or dying from breast cancer, but that's not enough screening if you carry a BRCA mutation. We would add MRIs to every year for these patients, or we could talk about medicines to help prevent breast cancer. There are medicines that can help prevent breast cancer. For ovarian cancer, we talk about going on birth control pills to decrease the risk of ovarian cancer, but again, there's no screening. So it is important to have this information in an early reproductive age so that we can make plans and have a conversation about removing tubes and ovaries at a recommended age to help prevent ovarian cancer. And they're doing actually other things too. They're doing studies where they just remove the fallopian tubes and leave the ovaries, so you're not missing your ovarian hormones, your estrogen, your progesterone. So that's pretty cool, but they're doing that only in the context of studies, not in the general population.
What about family members of someone who tests positive? Do they need to be tested?
Yes, they absolutely need to be tested. That's called cascade testing, when you test the family members of somebody that you know carries a BRCA mutation. If I have a BRCA mutation, my first degree relatives, because it's autosomal dominant, have a 50% chance of carrying the same mutation. I'm a big fan of sharing this information. I tell patients all the time, I ask them to reach out to relatives, and it's important for your relatives to know their risk too. You need to reach out to aunts, to your uncles, sisters, cousins, find out their history, but also inform them if you carry a genetic mutation that could affect their life. A really interesting thing is something called a true negative, which we see in BRCA mutations in families. So if I have a BRCA mutation and there's no other risk in my family, and my child doesn't carry that mutation, their risk, instead of breast cancer, for example, instead of being 70 to 80%, would go down to about the lifetime risk of about 13%, which is general population risk. So not only is it empowering to know, but it helps us if we know that you're negative.
Is there anything we can do to eliminate BRCA mutations in the Ashkenazi Jewish population?
Yeah, we can. I wish it would be as simple as what we're doing now with this CRISPR technology, where they cut out that gene like they're doing it with sickle cell disease, which is really great, but it's not ready for prime time with BRCA mutations. But what we can do, if we know before somebody has children, they can choose to do in vitro fertilization, to use a reproductive endocrinologist, get stimulated and choose eggs that are fertilized and pick the embryos out that don't carry this genetic mutation. So their children won't carry this burden that their parents may actually have. And in fact, in Florida, I know we've got people from all over the country, which is really great. But in Florida, Greater Miami Jewish Federation, a quick shout out to them. They have 2 programs of interest-free loans to give to people who choose to do IVF and prevent hereditary genetic mutations in children. So it's really great. But again, our goal is to prevent cancer or identify cancer at its most treatable stage. We in the Jewish community need to embrace testing of all Ashkenazi Jews, like we embraced testing for Tay-Sachs in the 70s and 80s. This is epidemic in our community, and we need to advocate for us, for our sisters, for our brothers, and we need to advocate for testing. And there are so many wonderful resources that we can tap into in our community, like, for example, Sharsheret.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Liz. Your knowledge base is truly tremendous. And I appreciate that perfect segue for me to introduce Deborah Litwack. We are delighted to be partnering with Sharsheret this evening, and we welcome Deborah Litwack, who is Sharsheret's Florida Program Coordinator. She plans education and outreach opportunities throughout Florida in Jewish communal settings, medical environments, and psychosocial support agencies. Deborah will speak about Sharsheret's mission, resources available, including genetic counseling and peer-to-peer support.
Thank you, Rachel. And thank you, Dr. Etkin-Kramer. I'm proud to represent Sharsheret tonight and be with you all. Next year, Sharsheret will celebrate 20 years saving lives through education and outreach. Sharsheret's psychosocial support services complement the work of Yodeah, providing resources and one-on-one support for women at high risk or with breast or ovarian cancer. Sharsheret's mission, Sharsheret is Hebrew for link or chain, and we make connections. We work with women and men and families before, during, and after a cancer diagnosis, providing personalized support from our genetic counselor, our team of 11 social workers, and our national programs. Sharsheret operates using the values of Shmirat HaGuf, of protecting the body and the soul, and we provide support along both avenues. So, why do we need a Jewish organization? As we learned from Dr. Etkin-Kramer, individuals of Ashkenazi and even Sephardi Jewish heritage have a hereditary predisposition towards these cancer-causing genetic mutations, increasing their risk of cancer by up to 10% over the general population. Sharsheret educates about these risks and provides culturally meaningful support. While our expertise is in Jewish women, up to 20% of the women we help are not Jewish, but have found our resources and support to be both meaningful and appropriate. So how do we do it? Our phones are answered 9 to 5 across the country in each time zone from the East Coast to the West Coast. Our website provides numerous opportunities to connect virtually. Our 12 national culturally relevant programs are available to everyone. Sharsheret provides confidential, highly personalized, and free support. Our Hallmark program that's really started it is our national peer support network, linking women who are newly diagnosed or at increased risk with others who have similar diagnoses or experiences, keeping in mind their stage of life, as well as their connection to Judaism when making a match. Sharsheret has tailored resources for women with ovarian cancer, and our Embrace program works with women with advanced cancer. And if you have questions regarding genetic mutations and genetic testing, we have an amazing genetic counselor on staff available for guided individual or family conversations. In outreach, we have support organizations around the country. And many of you on the call tonight represent synagogues and JCCs and other organizations that we have worked with over the years, and we thank you. We have a collection of digital resources, print resources, booklets, covering topics like your Jewish genes and clinical trials in a new age. We have active campus partnerships with Hillel International, Alpha Epsilon Phi Sorority, and Chabad on campus. For several years, Sharsheret has offered 4 national webinars, and since March and COVID-19, we literally have done weekly webinars, including cancer in the time of COVID, and most recently one on breast reconstruction. So research shows that addressing a woman's non-medical needs when facing cancer results in better outcomes. Through Family Focus, we provide resources for the family caregiving team. And our Busy Box programs for young children provides age-appropriate activities and books for those children whose mothers are going through cancer. Sharsheret offers survivorship kits with tools like a cookbook and exercise bands and a pedometer. And our Best Face Forward addresses the cosmetic side effects of treatment, providing makeup tips and a kit of personalized beauty instructions. An extension of Best Face Forward is our BFF 2.0. Next slide. Again, addressing non-medical services that are critical to a woman's quality of life. So we provide financial subsidies for women who demonstrate need for 3D pigmentation, which can be nipple tattooing after a breast reconstruction, scalp cooling treatment for trying to preserve the hair follicles during chemotherapy, and wigs, helping a woman find the right look and quality for a hair prosthesis. Next slide. Remember, Sharsheret is here for you. We are where you are in terms of a cancer journey, and wherever you are in the United States, Canada, Israel, and all over. When you need us, we are here for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. You all are doing terrific work and are such a wonderful resource for those diagnosed with breast or ovarian cancer. I would like to introduce Dr. Robin Strauss-Furlong, a pediatrician practicing in Miami, who will share her personal story. Thank you for being here tonight, Robin.
Thanks, Rachel. And thanks to my co-presenters and to all of you listening out there in Zoom world who've given up this hour to hear this life-saving information. My involvement with Yodeah started when I first heard Dr. Liz Etkin-Kramer speak about BRCA testing at an event at Temple Beth Shalom. Afterwards, I went up to her and asked why I wasn't a part of this vital effort, as I consider myself the poster child for the mission of Yodeah, to know that knowledge is power. You see, on both of my grandmother's sides are many women, none of whom, to our knowledge, had breast or ovarian cancer. So in 2010, when my baby sister, Susie Strauss-Jacobs, just shy of 50 years old, was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer, it was a shocking and devastating diagnosis for my entire extended family. Thanks to the efforts of many doctors and organizations like Dr. Etkin-Kramer and Yodeah, BRCA testing is now routinely suggested for all Ashkenazi Jews, as the incidence is 1 in 40. At that time, though, the standard of care was to test the person who was diagnosed and suggest that first-degree relatives get tested as well, only if that person was found to be positive. When my sister found out that she was a BRCA2 carrier, I went for testing, but ran into resistance from my insurance company, who at that time had a policy that one needed 2 first-degree relatives to develop cancer before they would pay for the test. Fortunately, my gynecologist got on the phone, working her way up the bureaucratic food chain to have it approved, letting them know that I should not be that second case. This is a moot point today, as the test is affordable through companies like Color, and the results can be private. I was tested that day and soon found out that I was also positive for the BRCA2 mutation. Since that time, Many of my relatives have also been tested so that they too can make informed decisions based on their results. With the knowledge that I was a BRCA2 carrier, I had decisions to make. One was easy, one was a bit more difficult. The easy one was having my uterus, tubes, and ovaries removed, as I was the mother of 3 grown children and way past childbearing age. I had this done laparoscopically and was back at work 5 days later. This would reduce my risk to close to 5%, assuming I also followed the recommendations of serial breast MRIs and taking an estrogen blocker like tamoxifen. The decision to have a bilateral mastectomy was more difficult, as I didn't want to deal with the recovery while my sister was struggling with her own battle. Of course, I also worried how I would look after the surgery, as I was attached to my breasts and not just figuratively. Lastly, as I'm a pediatrician, I knew that I would have to take off 2 to 3 weeks from work to recover, as trying to examine that sometimes struggling child would not be easy after the surgery. Eileen Yodeah, who you will also hear from shortly, harassed me about my delay, but I assured her I would be making this decision, just not yet, and that I was doing everything preventatively possible. My sister tragically died in 2013. And so in 2014, I had a bilateral mastectomy and reconstruction at the same time, and have not regretted this decision for 1 minute. No more tamoxifen, no more worrying about serial MRIs. Thank God my pathology was clean for all of these surgeries, and so my risk of developing either cancer is close to 0%. For me, finding out through genetic testing that I was a BRCA2 carrier truly was life-saving. But it's forever the lump in my throat that my baby sister wasn't as fortunate, and it was her diagnosis that saved my life. Yodeah, to know it can save your life too.
Thank you, Robin, for sharing that personal story. If there is one thing that you would like our guests to take away from what happened to you, what would it be?
To not think just because nobody in your family has had breast or ovarian cancer that it can't happen to you. If you're an Ashkenazi Jew, get tested. It saved my life.
Thank you, Robin. Joining us now is Dana Marin, a young mother and attorney who is here with us to share her personal story. Thank you for joining us, Dana.
Thank you for having me.
Dana, can you tell us about your experience with BRCA?
Yes, so 2 years ago, I took a 23andMe test for fun. I did it mainly for the genealogy. I thought it'd be exciting to find out where I came from. Well, it turns out it wasn't that exciting because I'm 99.8% Ashkenazi, which was no surprise to me. But what was shocking was that that test also told me that I carried the BRCA1 mutation. And this was shocking because I don't have any family history of breast or ovarian cancer. And so I immediately called my doctor. The doctor referred me to a geneticist oncologist. And I went to see that doctor, and I followed up that test with a full genetic panel. I did a full blood test, and in fact, it was confirmed that I have the BRCA1 mutation. And so it was so shocking to me because I grew up in a Jewish community. I went to shul my whole life. I never had a doctor that ever said to me, you should be tested for this. So it was really, I had no idea, I'm embarrassed to admit it now, that I had no real idea about anything about BRCA and how it was related to Ashkenazi Jewish women and men. And until that point, the only thing I really knew about BRCA was Angelina Jolie. So when I met with the doctor, she told me that because of my mutation, I had an 87% chance of developing breast cancer and a 40% chance of developing ovarian cancer. And I used to hear about other women who would have choose to have mastectomy, and I used to think, wow, that's such a drastic choice. But when I was sitting there in that office and I was next to my husband and thinking about my 2 kids who were 2 and 4 at the time, it just didn't even seem like a choice to me anymore. Hearing those numbers, 87% chance and 40% chance, I knew that I was just going to do everything in my power to reduce my risk. So 2 months after I found out I was BRCA1 positive, I had a complete hysterectomy, my tubes, my ovaries, my uterus removed. And 8 weeks after that, I had a prophylactic double mastectomy with immediate reconstruction. I was fortunate enough, well, I think so, I had the reconstruction at the same time as I had my mastectomy. So, you know, I just, the whole time to going through this process, all I could think about though really was how grateful I was that I knew this information. And, you know, luckily all of my pathology came back clear, and all I could think about is I'm just so lucky that I found out, and I'm lucky I was able to do this. I am in menopause now. When I found out I had BRCA1, I was 37, and they recommend when you have BRCA1 mutation to have your ovaries and tubes removed between the ages of 35 and 40. So I just felt like I had to do it then. And so there's that. I am in menopause, but I have wonderful doctors. Dr. Eckenkramer is one of them, and who helped me manage it. And, you know, I was eventually going to get there anyway, so it's just a little earlier. And, you know, I know that when my friends who are my age now, when they get there, I'll have lots to share with them. I'll be an expert at that time. So, you know, I see that as something I'll take to reduce my risk and to be here with my children and to watch them grow up. And so I would just really encourage everybody to tell their friends and their family who are Ashkenazi to get tested, have the knowledge.
Thank you. If you have one message for our guests, what would you say to them at this moment?
Well, I also, I mean, I would say that definitely get tested. I mean, it was not just me that this affected. It turns out that I actually got this from my dad's side. And we didn't know this till I found out that I tested positive. And after I tested positive, everyone in my family was tested. And it turns out my dad has it, his brother has it, and his sister has it. So from that one test, we hopefully saved 4 lives, because now we're all being monitored. And so it really does trickle out. I mean, this is something that passes through families. So it's not just you, it can be other people in your family. And so I would encourage everyone, get tested.
Thank you, Dana. Your story is compelling and it magnifies the importance of testing. However, not everyone finds out they are BRCA positive until they are already diagnosed with cancer. One such person is Eileen UT. Eileen was diagnosed with cancer 8 years ago. She is one of the strongest, most determined, most positive women you will ever meet, and she is on a mission to help educate and test as many people as possible so they can avoid the challenges that she faced. Welcome, Eileen. We are so happy you are here joining us tonight.
I'm so happy to be here and to be part of this amazing organization.
Please tell us about how you found out you were BRCA positive.
Well, 8 years ago, I went for my annual mammogram. I was doing the right thing, and I saw a little dot on the screen, and it turned out that it was a very tiny nodule, and it was breast cancer. And after I was diagnosed and had the biopsy and got the results, that's when they decided to test me for the BRCA gene. But for me, it was too late. But the purpose in doing it, I think at the time, was to find out if any of my other relatives should be tested, such as my sister, who thank God was negative.
Eileen, you have a son and a daughter. How old are they and have they been tested?
My daughter's 24 and my son is 22. Now for my daughter, it really wasn't recommended that she be tested until she was 30 based on how old I was when I actually got breast cancer. But we decided to do it as soon as possible because honestly, I wanted to be here when she got tested so that if she was positive, we could go to the appropriate doctors and make a 10 and 15-year plan for her. My son actually is being tested next week. I have the test, I had ordered it. And so he'll be tested at 22.
Eileen, you are an amazing woman who has turned your challenges into an opportunity to help others by speaking about your experiences and volunteering. If you have one message for those on this call today, what would that message be?
Well, before I tell you that, I wanted to say thank God my daughter was negative. Okay, we were very lucky there. But as far as the message goes, my message would be to please be proactive, get tested, have the people you love be tested. Do this so that you don't have to go through the emotional and physical agonizing journey that I've been dealing with for the past 8 years. Also, do it so that you can walk your kids down the aisle, and so that you'll be able to hold your grandbabies one day, and do it so that you'll live a long, healthy life with the people you love. I also have another message. My other message is don't wait till you have a terminal illness to appreciate every single minute of your life. Please, I've been doing everything in my power to enjoy every minute of every day and live every day with purpose and meaning. And really believe me, it'll lead to a much happier and meaningful life.
Eileen, we actually get to talk for a little bit longer. So I'm wondering if there are any more meaningful moments through this journey where you kind of feel like you could share something else that was that aha moment that got you to get your knowledge and your Yodeah.
It's not only that, you know what's really important? Be proactive. I know doctors, everyone thinks they know everything, and I know Liz Etkin-Kramer does, but she's the exception. You know, you have to know your body. There were times that I felt little lumps, even though actually a month after my double mastectomy and 6 months after I did chemo, I felt a lump in the same spot of my original diagnosis. And don't forget, I'd had a double mastectomy. And I went to the doctor who had done the double mastectomy, the oncological doctor, and I said, I feel a little lump there. He said, oh, it's scar tissue, don't worry. And I felt a lump. And so just for my own self-satisfaction, I went to my radiologist and I said, please do an ultrasound. And believe it or not, it had come back. And it was cancer. And you need to go with your gut. You need to know, not every doctor is every answer. And don't think if you have a double mastectomy that it's going to come back. I just had the rare form that really hardly ever happens. I've been to several breast oncologists about it. And I just had the kind that it came back every year in the same spot. It rarely happens. But be your own advocate. If you have the feeling, go find out about it.
Well,
that's what I also have to share.
Yes, and you are not only an advocate for yourself, but you are an advocate for others, and we are so appreciative of you. Thank you so much.
And one more thing, tell your story. Don't be shy. There are some people that want to keep everything to themselves, but if you can, let everyone know your story. If you can help anyone, if you can share your story or be a source of information for anyone going through what you went through, do it and help others.
Thank you so much. We truly appreciate you sharing your journey with us. I know it is not easy to talk about, but we are grateful for your candor and your amazing heart. You truly are an inspiration for all of us. Our final speaker tonight is Rabbi Lila Haas, Director of Adult Learning and Growth at SAGE, and a brand new mother to baby Asher. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm really honored to be part of this incredible organization, Yodeah, with such wonderful, strong women who are using their voice for good and to help save lives.
Thank you. So as Eileen stated, we're going to start with you just telling us your story.
Thank you. So 6 years ago, I was serving a congregation as rabbi, and that particular year was a very difficult year. we buried 3 young mothers to cancer. And I'll never forget standing with their children, their young children, their husbands, their family members, and feeling that pain alongside them, that deep, deep pain of loss. I was 29 years old. I was single. I was living outside of Miami on my own. And I came home and called my parents and I said, you know, I think it's time that I investigate further about my own genetic health, knowing that, thank God, my mother is a breast cancer survivor, my aunt a breast and ovarian survivor. And we started to uncover the depth of hereditary cancers in our lineage. And like Dana, my father is the BRCA carrier. And so it was from his lineage and his genetic family history that we were, you know, have this genetic mutation. And so what I decided to do was to consult with my incredible doctor team. And we decided that a mastectomy was the best option for me at that time. And so for my 30th birthday, I gave myself what I consider to be the greatest gift, the gift of a future, the gift of life, and the ability to one day be able to have a family of my own and to be able to live a strong and healthy life because I had Yodeah, I had the power of knowledge. So fast forward a few years, last year, my sister was at a Yodeah event, and she was so inspired by the speakers and by Dr. Kramer that she decided, you know what, I'm gonna spit in the tube myself. And she did, and she too came back BRCA positive. And for her 30th birthday, she gave herself the greatest gift, the gift of a future and the gift of life. And so we call ourselves the mastectomy twins. We share that powerful moment together, but also we share the power of knowledge and what that can do for ourselves and for our family and for our future. Last year, my husband and I were ready to start a family. And for a number of reasons, we had to go through the IVF route. And I want to really be clear about this because it was really impactful to me, especially since I'd become so involved with Yodeah and the BRCA information was so powerful in our family. I went to my doctor at the my IVF doctor, and shared that I was BRCA positive. And he said, thank you for that information. But we also do a lot of, we do the genetic screening and we will test all of the embryos. But what I wanted to be clear about is that my husband did the genetic testing as well through the fertility doctor. And obviously we checked off every single Ashkenazi box because we are both straight up Ashkenaz. So we checked every box. And when I got the genetic test results back, I called and I said, oh, I must be a mistake. I don't see whether or not he is BRCA positive or not. And they said, oh, we don't screen for the BRCA mutation. I said, well, what do you mean? I checked every single Ashkenaz genetic testing. And they said, it's just not something that we screen for. So I wanted to just bring that up because you're going through IVF, you're going through fertility treatment, you have the ability to know if it'll affect your future children. But if you don't know yourself that you have this mutation, and if you don't bring it up, you might not know that you're not being screened for it. So we were blessed to be able to harvest embryos and eggs. And when we got our genetic screening of our embryos, we had 9 embryos genetically screened as well as chromosome screened. And 8 of the 9 embryos had chromosomal abnormalities, and 7 of the 9 embryos carried the BRCA mutation. 7 out of the 9. So we were blessed with 1 precious embryo. And thank God, 7 weeks ago, sweet little Asher came into our lives. And this is really, for us, we are incredibly grateful and incredibly blessed. But in Judaism, Lador Vador, generation to generation, means so much. It's that incredible chain of inheritance, of heritage, and the ability to pass things on to our children is central to the core of Judaism. But in this case, I am so grateful that we are not passing this mutation onto our Asher, that we have broken that chain and we will absolutely pass on the goodness and the richness and the blessing of Judaism onto him, but not the BRCA mutation.
Well, wow. That is an incredible story, and I appreciate you sharing it with us. As you've already shared, as a leader in the Jewish community, I'm wondering what advice you would give to other young women. And I'm kind of asking for the perspective regarding the Jewish thought that if you save one life, it is if you have saved the world, an obligation that we have to each take care of each other.
Absolutely. And that is a powerful teaching that we learn, the power of tikkun olam, to repair the world, to repair relationships, and also to be among those who bring light into a place of darkness. In this week's Torah portion that we'll read, the Shabbat, Lech Lecha, God calls out to Avram and says, Lech Lecha, go forth, leave the place of your birth, leave everything that you know, and venture out into the unknown. Go on a journey to a place that I will show you. What we've heard tonight are the stories of women who received a Lech Lecha call. They left the place of comfort, a place of where they currently stood, and they went on a journey completely into an unknown space, not knowing what it would bring, what they would encounter, what they would experience. But what they did know, what they did Yodeah, what they did know was that they had the power and the strength and the courage to make decisions, to grant themselves the ability to have a future and to, God willing, have a cancer-free future. So many of us will have Lech Lecha moments in our lives where we will embark upon a journey that we will go into spaces of uncertainty and darkness, and through our own knowledge and our own convictions, we have the power to bring light, hope, and resilience to this world. I hope and pray that all of us who are on this call this evening will do for themselves and for the future generations. Click on the link in Yodeah's website to get tested. Use it as your Lech Lecha moment. Allow it to be your call to go out onto a journey that you might not know what's coming, but what I know from being one who's taken that journey, it has granted me the ability to hold my child in my arms and to have a life of goodness, a life of, God willing, continued good health, and a life of joy and happiness, which I wish for all of you.
Thank you, Lila. And from a big virtual squeeze from me to Asher, okay? Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Now that you have heard these remarkable stories, here are the most important things you can do now to save your life and the lives of those you love. 1 in 40 Ashkenazi Jews carries a BRCA mutation. Get tested for yourself, for your children, and for your grandchildren. It is an easy, simple saliva test. You get a tube just like this and you spit in it, and that's all you have to do. Simply go to yodeah.org and order your test through a link to a medical grade lab. Be sure to include the code NO30 when checking out to receive Yodeah's discounted cost of $149. While you are there, buy a kit for someone you love and give the gift of life. A few additional points I want to make regarding the test. The lab runs a medical grade multi-gene panel that includes mutations on BRCA genes and 28 other genes that can increase your risk of hereditary cancers, including breast, ovarian, pancreatic, prostate, and colon cancer. Whether you choose to be tested through the lab link on our website or through a healthcare provider or a genetic counselor, the important thing is getting tested. Yodeah is lab agnostic, and we have no financial ties to any lab. All of this information is on our website at yodeah.org. Educate others about the risk of Jewish hereditary cancer and encourage them to get tested. Discuss with your spouse, partner, family members, and friends, men and women, so they can find out before they may develop cancer. We can treat BRCA mutations like we did Tay-Sachs and educate the Jewish community and take action. Help Yodeah organize events. Please connect us with Jewish organizations you're involved with. And help us plan virtual events for your community and in person once we are actually able to be together. Please consider a contribution to Yodeah to help us educate and test more Ashkenazi Jews. Since November is No Shave November, where men let their hair, beards, and mustaches grow for the purpose of raising awareness and funding for cancer prevention, research, and education, we have scheduled a men's event with Dr. Bandari, a local Miami urologist, and Dr. Etkin Kramer, who will both discuss BRCA mutations' impact on men and their families. The date is November 19th at 7, and we highly encourage you to join us with the men in your lives. Please mark your calendars now and put it on theirs too. Invitations will be sent out shortly, and you can also go to our website. Go to yodeah.org for any additional information about hereditary Jewish mutations, how to get tested, and how to donate. So now we are going to shift from our conversational piece into our question and answers. So I've received a few questions from the question and answer bar, and I'm going to share them now. I was screened over 10 years ago and was BRCA negative. Is there any reason to be retested because of more advanced or recent tools to assess the presence of BRCA? And I think Dr. Etkin Kramer, that one would be for you.
So when we did testing about 10 years ago, most likely it was done for a family history or a personal history of cancer, because they didn't do population-based testing back then. And B, they're probably limited to a few mutations at the time. Since for the past 10 years, there have been other genetic mutations on the BRCA gene, although they're less common in Ashkenazi Jews, but there are newer mutations and there are newer genes you could be tested for. So what I would do for somebody like that is get a copy of your test, go to your gynecologist, your healthcare provider, please, Lord, hopefully they'll know about it, or genetic counselor, sit down and say, am I up to date? That's what we do in my office.
All right, here is another one. I'm 80 years old. Does it matter or still make sense for me to test? And I think
I'll take this one.
You got it.
My grandfather passed away 25 years ago from pancreatic cancer. We didn't know it then, but we know now that it was a BRCA-related cancer. And so what I would say is absolutely, because he had the chance to get tested then, to be able to tell his children and then his grandchildren and now our great-grandchildren that he carried this mutation, it would have saved a lot of heartache, a lot of surprise, and we all could have been prepared. And you know, this is something that passes through generations. So whether or not you decide to do something for yourself because you say you're at a certain age, you're 80 and you're not going to have a surgery, you're not going to, you know, do any further testing, do it for your children, do it for your grandchildren. Because Lador Vador, this does go through generation to generation, and it would be the greatest gift you could give them.
All right, Robin, this is something that's actually pressing on my mind. As a doctor, are you aware of the impact the pandemic has had on women's health in this area? Just unmute yourself because I know you have such good information to share.
Thanks. Great question, Rachel. Just a couple weeks ago, the Wall Street Journal ran a big article talking about just this question of delayed screenings and its impact. There was a prediction that due to missed screenings, that 10,000 deaths could result over the next 10 years, which is crazy. This year alone, through August, 18% of the breast cancers that were diagnosed were already advanced versus 12% last year. They show that mammograms were down by 95% in April. And UHC actually did a study, and they had said that there were 1 million less mammograms through August this year. So people, if you haven't been screened, if you've been delaying your screenings for whatever, your colonoscopy, your mammograms, go now. Don't delay it anymore. You don't want to find out too late.
Which reminds me, I know I need to get on that. So I definitely will be making my appointment tomorrow. What impact does genetic testing and a positive genetic mutation test result have on medical insurance, long-term care insurance, disability insurance, and life insurance? And I think that one should go over to Deborah.
Okay. Yes, there is a law on the books since 2008, GINA's law, Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, that prevents most discrimination for medical insurance. However, for life and disability and long-term care insurance, it does not apply. These kinds of insurances can ask about genetic testing and may use that information when underwriting a policy. So I often recommend that people get their insurance in line before testing.
All right, and there is one final question that I'm going to ask, which is there a difference between BRCA1 and BRCA2?
I'll take that one.
I think so.
So yes, so they're on two separate genes. One of them is on chromosome 13, the other one is on chromosome, I believe, 17. And the important thing about that is that the risk of cancer of a person who carries each one of these genes may be a little bit different. So BRCA genes code for proteins that help prevent cancer. So if one of them is not coding well, the protein isn't made well, and cancer is just a little bit more likely to develop, or a lot more likely to develop. So the result in somebody who has a mutation in a BRCA1 mutation is usually a higher risk of breast cancer, and very commonly triple negative, and a higher risk of ovarian cancer. BRCA2, we see the curve of that line a little bit flatter with age, so the risk of breast and ovarian may be slightly less. But the flip side of that is that that's the one that tends to be associated more so with pancreatic as well as male prostate cancer, the more aggressive prostate cancer. So yes, and there, interestingly, NCCN, National Comprehensive Cancer Network, has different guidelines for different mutations. BRCA1, BRCA2, checked, whatever the mutation is. And the future, the studies may come out where not only is it the genetic mutation, now we're getting really into the weeds, and I apologize, but it's the actual mutation. So if it's a mutation 5013 versus 417 may influence the risk itself.
All right, well, Dr. Eckenkramer, incredible. And I would love to give you the last word. What is something that you would like to share with our attendees tonight before I thank you all?
First of all, I want to thank everyone here. We had a huge number, and I think it's an amazing turnout, and I'm so appreciative for everything that everyone has done. I would like to remind everyone that we are a community and we take care of each other, despite what's going on in today's world. Not getting political, but we do take care of each other, and that's what a Jewish community does, and that's a beauty of a Jewish community. And when I first started Yodeah, or I was trying to start Yodeah, the research would say to me, but Jews don't go to temple anymore. Why are you doing that? None of the young Jews go to temple. I said, well, I don't know about that. They may not go to temple, but they either are a Jewish mother or they have a Jewish mother. And as that, we need to be the mother in our community. We need to take action. We need to, as women, we can make sure that people get tested. We can make our husbands get tested. We can make our husbands do a lot more stuff than we used to, than I used to think that we could. But we can do this. We can make sure that people know about this. We can get people tested. And if we save just one life from this, it'll be worth it.
Well, I cannot thank each of you enough. It is incredible how you have shared your stories and your knowledge, and I so appreciate your time tonight. I would also like to thank all of our partners and attendees. I believe we had just about 300 people attending this webinar tonight. And although we have run out of time, I know so many of you still have questions, so please feel free to email us at info@yodeah.org, and we will respond directly to each of your questions. We want to thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Please go online tonight, right now, right after we click off and this ends, and order your test or make an appointment with your doctor, a healthcare provider, or a genetic counselor to get tested at their office. Do it for yourself and do it for your children and grandchildren. Knowledge is power. Knowledge saves lives. Thank you.